So it is the Martha Zoller Show, and Shondell Summers here with me today, and we're talking to Bryan Riley from the National Taxpayers Union. And Bryan, look, I'm a strong conservative Republican. I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I'm more of a free market Republican, but I have been pleasantly surprised in most areas how this has worked out. However, I am hearing from a lot of people, especially in the kind of lower middle to middle class group of people, income wise, where they're feeling food and coffee and things in the grocery store. Egg prices have come down. That was the big thing we were talking about. But they're concerned about other prices. And I'm a little nervous about the tariffs related to food and things like coffee. Your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think that's a very important point. In my opinion, and I'm an economist, I'm not a political expert, but I think most people would say that one of the main reasons President Trump got elected this time out was not because of anything he had to say about tariffs, although he was pretty clear about his views, but they were mad and upset about high prices and inflation under President Biden. And in my view, these tariffs are just going to increase prices. Now, for some commodities and some goods they have, and you just named some of them, coffee, for example. But I think in other cases, people who look at the tariffs have said that initially some of the businesses that import have been able and willing to eat some of the costs and not pass them along to consumers. So we haven't necessarily seen those prices reflected at the grocery store or at the department store when we go shopping. The companies can't eat those costs forever, and so if the tariffs remain in effect, we are going to see higher prices. I think it's inevitable.
And last year Democrats were saying, "Oh, don't believe how you feel prices are. Look at these numbers." And in a way, we're doing that now ourselves. We're saying, "Oh, look at the stock market. Look at the tariffs. It's not as bad as you think." And I talked to a couple 2 days ago, and this is the reason why I called to try to get you guys on, because the story rang true. They said, in 21 and 22, because I asked them, well, how did you respond to the increased inflation in 21 and 22? And they said, well, in 21 and 22, we were shopping at Sprouts, which is an expensive store, and we started shopping at Aldi. That's how we dealt with it. We went, but now the prices at Aldi are higher, and there's nowhere cheaper to go. And that's what and I think that's a real, that's a real story. Do you know what I'm saying? And that hits you. Yeah. You go to the grocery store every week, and people that buy just about the same things every week, they know the prices are going up.
Yeah, they see it firsthand. And I'm a little bit cautious of what to take from polls, because I never know exactly who they ask or how they ask the question. But the most recent poll I saw said that Americans, the list of policies that Trump's pursuing, the most unpopular was his tariff policy, and it was unpopular by about 2-1. And in my opinion, a lot of the conservative Republicans, like you may consider yourself one, and I'm certainly consider myself conservative. NTU is not a partisan organization. But a lot of the people who I think say we like tariffs, I don't think they really like tariffs as much as they like President Trump and want to see him succeed. So if he says, hey, I like tariffs, they're going to say, I like tariffs. If I believe, and I may be wrong, but if he came out tomorrow and said, these tariffs are undermining what I wanted to do with our tax cuts, and they're making it harder for businesses, and they're driving up prices, so I'm going to start reducing tariffs. I think the same people who say they like tariffs probably would be on board with those tariff cuts because they want President Trump to succeed, and they're just following what he says he wants to do. So,
and
I think it's not a political winner.
I almost remember the moment when I became a free market conservative. I was debating with somebody, and I was in my late 20s, and it's like the light went on, and since then I've been a free market conservative, and it's been difficult. But from the National Taxpayers Union perspective, where do you see the economy, and what should we be concerned about?
Well, the tariffs are just taxes, and by law, the tariffs are paid by Americans, and it's about $300 billion a year in taxes. So when I hear President Trump and his administration say, "Hey, it's great, we've got all this money coming in," it's just a form of tax dollars coming in. If we want to reduce the budget deficit, and I do, I think we all should, it's better to address that through cutting spending and not hiking taxes.
Right.
And the Congressional Budget Office just said the tax cuts earlier this year, they're going to help our economy, they're going to boost investment, but the tariffs are going to undermine some of those gains. And we're talking about the costs that consumers pay, but it affects producers as well. So if you're a Georgia cotton farmer or you're raising poultry or, a lot of these goods depend on export markets, and which we can be shooting ourselves in the foot from an export perspective, because if we're not buying as much from other countries, they can't afford to buy as much from us. So it's not just the consumers who get hit, but we lose our export markets potentially. And if you're a farmer and you got to pay more for fertilizer and herbicides and goods made out of steel like tractors because of tariffs, that just makes it harder for you to do business as well. So I really think certainly there are some winners from tariffs. I wouldn't deny that, but I think the costs for Georgia and for the country as a whole really outweigh the benefits.
Well, and I want to go back to the food thing again, because in the state of Georgia, we do not charge sales tax on food, okay? Because we don't want, it's everyone doesn't get the sales tax on food, but it especially helps people at the lower and middle income because they don't have that extra tax on their food. And my mom, when she used to go to the grocery store, she understood that there were certain times a year you couldn't get certain things because they weren't in the growing season. We weren't doing as much importing. But now we're spoiled at the grocery store. We expect to walk in at any given time in the grocery store and have every kind of fruit, every kind of vegetable, every kind of thing that we would have no matter what time of the year it is. And that requires importing stuff that's growing at times of the year that is not growing here. And there's tariffs being put on that. And then I learned something, Bryan, which you're going to probably laugh at me for, is that coffee is the number 2 commodity behind oil. And coffee is up right now. And I'm going to get mad if my coffee gets too expensive.
Well, you might have to start drinking tea or something. I don't know what to tell you there. I'll probably have to keep buying my coffee personally, no matter how high the price gets. Now, President Trump, the administration recently did release an executive order saying we are going to get rid of some of these tariffs on goods that we don't produce in the United States.
Good.
I think that's smart. Now, but I think in general we ought to be looking at reducing costs for Americans, making it easier to do business, and the tariffs for many businesses make it harder to do business, and if you're a small business especially, it's a challenge. You can't necessarily, they've been waiting, it looks like November the Supreme Court may rule on the legality of these tariffs. And if you're a big car manufacturer, you can suck it up and make it, for months. But if you're a smaller business, you don't necessarily have the cash flow or the money in the bank, and in many cases you might just have to close up shop. And we don't often hear a lot about those stories, unfortunately. So to me, the benefit of trade, I'm old enough to remember when you couldn't get blueberries and strawberries year round when I was growing up in the Midwest, and now people just take that for granted. So it's not just prices, it's what you have the opportunity to buy and when you can buy it. We growing up in Kansas, we didn't have a lot of lobster and shrimp and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
We take that for granted, and that's part of the benefit of trade. It's not just prices; it's bringing us closer together, and everything we import. Again, that creates dollars that our trading partners can use to either buy our exports or to invest in our economy. And I know in Georgia, you can see the benefits of that international investment firsthand. It's been in the news a lot lately.
Absolutely. Bryan Riley from the National Taxpayers Union, we appreciate you being with us today. And, we'll keep, we're all on the same team. We're just trying to make sure we do it in the best way possible. Thank you for being here today.
I appreciate that. Thank you.